Monster move in the market today. The S&P 500 gapped up and continued running throughout the day, closing at the highs. S&P was up 3.26%, closing at 5844.19. And we've been highlighting all the gamma exposure sitting between the 5800 strike and the 6000 strike. These have been large gamma exposure concentrations that we've been focusing on both in our YouTube videos and in our daily live stream. So today's move tagged that first major level at 5800, and of course we saw the continuation throughout the day. Big volume coming in the options market as well between 5800 and 6000. Actually over 100,000 contracts traded at that 6000 strike. Let's take a look at our gamma exposure intensity gauge. This informs us how positive or how negative gamma exposure currently is relative to historical averages. For the S&P, gamma exposure is sitting at 1.3 billion, and so we are solidly in positive gamma exposure territory. This essentially means we are in a buy the dip environment. So any dips that we see over the coming days would be an opportunity to re-enter long positions. We also have a GEX weighted volatility gauge. This is measuring implied volatility relative to the past 52 weeks, and we see implied volatility has only been lower 53% of the time in the last 52 weeks. So we're about even when it comes to implied volatility, but also simultaneously in this buy the dip environment. So this is giving us opportunities for big upside like what we saw today, up 3.26% on the S&P 500.
Thanks, Anthony. I have IWM pulled up, and we ended up gapping up and basically making a huge move, close to 5% or around 5%, right up into the upper dealer cluster zone at 210. And the GEX at 210 and 208 is the other big GEX cluster we see there. Now, that said, we have not seen GEX move to increase at higher strikes just yet. And so really, participants need to be kind of on the lookout for the possibility of a pullback from this zone. I do think that it's bullish that the Keltner channels are pointing higher until we see some other evidence. When we do see a pullback, it may end up being a good buying opportunity. So, we'll see if we end up going back to this 200 level. This would be the first spot that I would look at. And it also had volume today. Below that, we have 195 and 190 again. And the other thing that we mentioned just yesterday, in fact, was that if we did see that move higher, we would likely see all of this substantial negative GEX on IWM erased and get us back to the positive line. And sure enough, that's what we did. IWM moved back into positive GEX territory. Now, the question remains, is this a short-term top, or is this a sign of a larger change? So we will have to see how that plays out.
Thanks, Sean. Next, let's take a look at a few names that we are watching and actively trading in our community. First, I'll start off with Shop. Shop had a huge move today, up 13.7%, closing at 104.34. The largest gamma exposure concentration sitting at the 105 and the 110 strike. We actually entered into a position at the end of April for a move up into this 100 to 105 zone. Back on April 28th, we were analyzing the gamma exposure data. The 100 and the 105 strikes were the largest concentrations, with gamma exposure growing all the way up to the 110 strike and beyond. So we entered a bullish position buying the May 16th 100 105 call debit spread. And so fast forward to today, over the last couple of weeks, the position really had been just kind of languishing. But after the big move today, we are solidly in our profit zone here. And so we're going to be looking to exit this position. However, I will say with the continued volume that we see coming in on Shop at the 105 and the 110 strike, I do believe there is further upside to come in Shopify over the next couple of weeks. By the way, if you want to follow along with all the moves we're making in our options portfolio, you can see our trades in real time by becoming a member at geeksoffinance.com. I'll put a link in the description below, so you guys can definitely check that out when you get a chance.
Anthony, I have Apple pulled up, AAPL, and I've already circled the largest GEX cluster that we see here at 220. There's also sizable GEX at 230. So even though QQQ is in the upper dealer cluster zone, we don't see all of the large holdings within QQQ having yet reached that same upper target. The way I've seen this play out before, if there's some consolidation sideways for a day or two with QQQ, you may see, some of the major holdings drop while others rise. You know how that goes with the rotation game, but we can at least say that Apple shows some potential to reach the 220 and even 230 strikes. GEX is positive. It's continued to move more positive over the last several trading sessions. And looking at our 3D map, a lot of the 220 and 230 GEX is clustered around either the this Friday, the 16th, in the case of 220, or even more so for both of these going out to June. It's more aggressive to bet on these prices being hit sooner than later, but there is the potential that it's as soon as Friday, could be a month later.
Thanks, Sean. Next, let's take a look at Tesla. Another big update for Tesla, up 6.8%, closing above 300, 318.60. Tesla had been going through a big consolidation period between February and April, and now appears to be just breaking out above this 300 strike. If you've been watching our videos over the last couple of weeks, we've been highlighting the big 300 strike on Tesla. We've also been playing this in two of our portfolios. One we closed out last Friday, and I think we noted this in last night's video. We have a smaller portfolio, and we had a very simple call debit spread. We actually have the 300 325 call debit spread on Tesla, targeting a move into this zone. We got that today on this big run up. This was a position that we initially entered back on April 30th. So it's taken nearly 2 weeks to come to fruition. But like I mentioned, we bought the 300 325 call debit spread. This was on this pullback when Tesla was pulling back to the mid 270s, but we still had this large gamma exposure concentration at the 300 strike. So that's ultimately what we were playing for. And as I mentioned, we actually exited this morning on the big move up, collecting $775 in profits on this call debit spread. So really happy with that move. But now I want to take a look at what could possibly come next for Tesla. We're now seeing gamma exposure growing at this 350 strike as well as the 400 strike. Big volume coming in today at these strikes as well. This is nearly 150,000 contracts trading at this big 350 strike and over 50,000 contracts trading at the 400 strike. So these are way out of the money contracts that are trading heavy volume. So market participants are clearly of the mind that higher prices are likely in the coming weeks and months. So for us, now that we've exited both of our Tesla positions, what I'm looking to do is wait for a pullback or some consolidation. You hear us talk about that a lot in our YouTube videos. Basically, we like to enter at advantageous entry points, and for long positions, that usually centers around periods of consolidation or pullbacks. So I'd be looking for a pullback into or around this 300 strike for the next leg higher, potentially to 350 or maybe even 400 here later in the summer.
Thanks, Anthony. Let's take a look at Amazon, AMZN. Amazon has particular sensitivity to what's happening in China. So, just like everything else that went up today on the news, it went right into this upper dealer cluster zone at 210. And we do see some GEX that's higher. So, there's certainly risk to 220 on the upside, and there was volume there today as well. But the upper dealer cluster zone matches pretty well with the upper Keltner channel right now, and given this move, it would not surprise me to see Amazon pull back from here. We even see the lower Keltner channel slightly pointing down. Until we see enough evidence to the contrary, though, any pullback, even with Amazon, is likely a buying opportunity.
And guys, we are running a special promotion, $300 off our yearly portfolio manager tier subscription. Use code MAY2025 at checkout. We've got a few spots remaining, so definitely take advantage of that while you can. We are ending this promotion soon. Members get access to our gamma exposure dashboard, our algorithmic trading strategies, as well as our vibrant community Discord. Our Discord community has a ton of great traders in there sharing their own trade setups and strategies, and you can also follow along with all the trades we're making in our own portfolio as well. So that's definitely something you don't want to miss. I'll put a link in the description below so you guys can check that out when you get a chance. Thanks so much everybody for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next video.